Hey everyone, welcome back to Engelbard Gaming. You know what? I've made poor little Doom a bit of a neglectorino on the channel in recent years. That ends today. In this video, I'll be showing you 4 hacks, mods, fan patches, or homebrew ports to consoles that seek to correct the crippled retail versions of Doom that we got on those systems. There are many more versions of Doom, and I could spend hours on a video with many of the different Doom updates out there, so I am limiting this to these 4 versions of Doom only. We'll see updated versions of the classic FPS for the Sega 32X, Saturn, Atari Jaguar, and even the Nintendo Game Boy Advance. Enough chatter, let's get on with it. We begin with 32X Doom, which was a version I didn't play a ton of over the years because, well, I didn't like it that much. I also didn't buy it when it was new. I only picked it up years later when it was super cheap. Having said that, the 32X version of Doom wasn't terrible in its day. I played it at a friend's house every now and then. It wasn't full screen, the music was awful and had some levels cut, and the levels themselves were redesigned and based on the Jaguar version of the game, which somewhat ironically came out a week after the 32X version. So back in late 1994, this was okay at best. But it was a playable version of Doom on a console, and in fact, the very first console port of Doom ever released. You might think that a good version of Doom isn't possible on Sega's much-maligned mushroom-shaped Genesis/Mega Drive add-on. If you think that, well, you're wrong! If you've ever been paying attention, there's been a lot of activity in recent years focused on bringing the 32X a better version of Doom. Doom Resurrection was a huge improvement, but that's not quite the version that we're going to be looking at today. Instead, we'll be looking at Doom CD 32X Fusion, which basically takes Resurrection and adds CD support to it, and the game has all the levels from Doom 1, Doom 2, and a bunch of extras, totaling a triple-digit number of maps. You also get resolution options, detail options, hugely improved graphics, ginormously improved music, and much more. And I don't want to spoil anything for the rest of the video, and I'm definitely not insulting anyone else's work or anything like that, but this is the best, most complete version of Doom we'll be looking at today. Fusion is tremendously impressive, and just knowing something like this could have been made back in the day really kind of makes you mad at what we got. Doom CD 32X Fusion, and man that's a mouthful, is such a huge improvement that it's almost shocking. I'll put links to info on this version and the others we're going to look at today in the description, in case you want to try those out for yourself. Note that for pretty much all of these things I'm going to discuss today, you either need the original game to patch or the WADs from the official retail versions of Doom, which you can conveniently get from your own copies on Steam or other legit retail versions. But anyway, here are the 2 versions side by side for a moment. Huge difference, right? I meant to cover this one a long time ago, so I'm sorry I'm just getting to it now. Fusion still isn't as smooth as another version we'll be looking at today, but it's so well put together that it is still a fantastic version to play, and the maps are based on the originals. I'll also note that Fusion requires both a cartridge ROM and an ISO image to work, and if you plan to play it via emulation, which I'm doing here, the only modern emulator that fully supports it is the multi-system emulator Ares. Though there is a version of Pico Drive out there that supports it too. Just note that Pico Drive is a little bit older, and none of the versions of Pico Drive currently in RetroArch as I record this support playing Fusion. But bravo to all involved, this is an incredible piece of work. Here's Saturn Doom, again. I know I covered this one pretty recently in my Ymir video. I showed you in that one how overclocking alone tremendously improves the performance in it. And sure, it does do a fantastic job most of the time. However, Fafling, the author of the improvement patch we're going to look at in just a moment, pointed out in that video's comment section that there are a few issues with gravity that make it impossible to complete certain jumps, and that the overclocking also speeds up some of the game logic and the way some of the enemies and objects move throughout the game. So there are some sections where you'd have to turn the overclocking off in Ymir to get past obstacles and progress. I've linked Fafling's channel in the description of this video, by the way, if you want to go straight to the source on any of that. Anyway, looking at the original Saturn version of Doom, you can tell that the frame rate is atrocious. What you can't see is how unresponsive and laggy the controls feel. This was a disaster of epic proportions that should have never happened, especially not in 1997. And yes, there's a famous story that the devs at Rage had a hardware-accelerated version up and running at 60 frames per second, and that Carmack vetoed it, but honestly, I'd really have to see that version of the prototype up and running before I believe it could actually run the entire game at 60 frames per second, since there were a grand total of 0 commercial Saturn FPS titles that ran at or anywhere near 60 frames per second. Even 30 was usually a stretch. So I'm going to tell you right now that even if Carmack hadn't vetoed their higher performing version of Doom, I don't think there's any way it would have come out running at 60 frames per second for the full complete game, and I'm sure it would have performed better than that retail release that we got, but also that it probably would have struggled to hit 30 frames per second after all the game logic and all the final information was in place for the title. Anywho, let's take a look at Pfeffling's patch right now. In addition to the performance patch, I've also applied another version of the patch that adds the 3DO version of the music, which is based on the original Doom soundtrack instead of the moody and atmospheric soundtrack we got that was made for the PS1 version and then adapted partially into the Saturn version. Pfeffling said his version with the patch here runs almost as smoothly with no overclocking as the retail version does with the 500% overclocking that I showed you in Ymir a little while back. And from the few levels I've played, it really looks like he's just about right about that. Now, it does still chug a smidge in places where Ymir doesn't with the overclock, and Pfeffling mentioned that you could use a 200% overclock in Ymir to fix those things and keep the game at a constant 30 frames per second. But it does have a side effect of making the auto map flicker. Now, if you don't use the map, then hey, there you go, you've got the best of both worlds. So here's a look at the original and the patch running side by side. And yeah, what a difference! Pfeffling has really done an amazing job on this one. I don't know whether or not he considers this final or we might see other versions in the future, but as it is now, this is a joy to play through and a tremendous improvement from the original version. And once you take this and combine it with the 3DO soundtrack, you've really got an excellent Doom experience on the Saturn, even if some of the music in this version now doesn't quite play on the right maps as it is. So if you're a Saturn or a Doom fan, I highly recommend checking out Pfeffling's patch. Now, an important message from my sponsor, me. Sorry to break in here. This is only the second time I have done this in 5 years of making videos. Please give me just a few seconds of your time for a quick channel announcement, and then we'll get back to the other 2 versions of Doom. Now, I just nuked and completely rebuilt my Patreon with 3 brand new, cheaper tiers for anyone that will be awesome enough to consider helping out. You might be wondering, why should I? Good question. First, I'm a masochist who spends way too much time making videos about old video games, and that doesn't exactly lead to a lavish lifestyle. If you want to fuel my unhealthy habit of entertaining you with comparisons, hardware reviews, fact videos, and more, I would really appreciate it. You can help offset some of the money that I needlessly throw away buying game systems for review and equipment to keep the channel up and running. Times are tough for almost everyone now, I get it. If you can't contribute, that's cool, keep enjoying the videos, you won't miss anything. But if you can chip in and want some behind the scenes stuff, your name in virtual lights, and most importantly, if you want a say in what videos get made, then please check out the Patreon, linked in the description. Alright, let's get back to Doom. Next up, here's the original version of Doom for the Atari Jaguar. I've had this game since it was new, and it was the first version of Doom that I've ever played all the way through from start to finish. It was pretty well made for its time, but the no music during gameplay thing always really bugged me. You only get to hear some of the classic Doom tunes when you're on the level clear screen. The frame rate isn't all that great if you look at this game today, and the controls do feel a smidge laggy largely because of that. The original Jaguar gamepad is no picnic either. It's really flat, and the plastic is really hard, so it's not comfortable to press down for long periods of time, and that's when I was a young whippersnapper. Now, I'm an old codger, and my thumb would probably hurt after 5 to 10 minutes of this game on that controller. But anyway, Jaguar Doom also had some levels cut, some levels modified, and various other little edits. It also served as the basis for most of the other console ports of Doom for a long time. So what's changed now? Well, just recently, a new patch of JagDoomEx was released. This one slightly improves the frame rate, adds control options, namely for the Jaguar 6-button Pro controller, and adds in-game music. This patch, which I'll link in the description, makes the game much more appealing and a generally much better experience. And again, if Jaguar Doom had been like this when it came out, I'd have personally liked it way more. Why did the retail version come out like it did when, well, this was possible? There are a few reasons, some technical and some not. The Jaguar's DSP processor, which was really there to handle sound, was used in Doom to manage collision detection and some other details, which meant this resource wasn't fully available for music playback. And the non-technical reason for its issues was they had a deadline they had to hit. This game needed to be done before Christmas of '94. JagDoomEx does some clever stuff to alleviate the technical side of things, like only updating the HUD when something changes, meaning it has more resources to devote to the important stuff related to gameplay. And here they are side by side. While you're looking at this, I'll just say, rejoice, Jaguar fans! It may have taken 30 plus years, but there's finally a much better way to enjoy Doom on the platform. This most recent patch was only updated this month in August of 2026. It is quite possible there will still be future versions that improve things even further. But even if this is the final patch released, it's worth checking out. Just having the music in the game, even if it doesn't play in the right place, makes the experience so much better. Now, I do also know from a few other videos and some other news I've seen out there that if you intend to run this on real Jaguar hardware, you might experience some performance issues, particularly if you're on a PAL console that updates with a frequency of 50 Hz. So if you want to try this one out, the best option for everybody at the moment is really just firing up Big PMU. The final version of Doom we'll be checking out today is Doom for the Game Boy Advance. It was released way back in 2001, and when it came out, I thought it was pretty fantastic being able to play Doom on a tiny little handheld system. Sure, the resolution was low, some of the levels were modified, and some were removed entirely, and the blood was changed to green, and many other things were modified. Still, this was Doom on a handheld game system in your pocket when that sort of thing was unheard of. Today, of course, we all carry around ultra-powerful devices in our pockets that would have been considered supercomputers 25 years ago. But in 2001, the gaming landscape was entirely different. Oh, I should note, I accidentally put this one on a lower difficulty, which is why you're seeing fewer enemies on screen, so I just did the same setting for both versions we'll be looking at here. Anyway, the game had its flaws, but this was a good version of Doom, and people generally liked it back in the day. But could we have had something closer to the original Doom experience on the mild-mannered ARM7 TDMI CPU within the Game Boy Advance? To answer that question, let's look at GBADoom. This is actually a port of PR Boom, a source port of the Doom engine that can run the game on many other platforms. GBADoom pretty much plays the game as intended with none of the edits or compromises from the original retail version. GBADoom has been around for a while now, having originally been released way back in 2019. The most recent version is from August 2025, so it's about a year old as I record this. And yeah, this is a much more faithful version of Doom than the retail release. What does it have that original retail one doesn't? Pretty much everything. It's got all the levels, the original levels instead of ones based on the Jaguar version, Red Blood, and the restoration of all the other changes I mentioned. Oh, and it doesn't just run the original Doom, it also runs Doom 2, and Final Doom, and many other Doom releases. The downside with this one is you need to have the WADs and you have to build the version yourself unless you sail the 7 seas. Anyway, here's the original retail version and GBADoom side by side. The level differences are kinda crazy. It's pretty amazing seeing the absolute full Doom levels running on the super low-res, low-power Game Boy Advance. If you have a GBA and want to play the best version of Doom possible on it, I highly suggest you ditch that good-for-its-time retail original and replace it with the just plain good GBADoom instead. The differences you can see here speak volumes, don't you think? It's so impressive. Sometimes you will still deal with slowdown and stuff like that because it is still GBA we're talking about here. But it is absolutely amazing playing a completely authentic version of Doom on the Game Boy Advance. So there you go, folks. That's 4 versions of Doom that were lacking in some way for their time, that had modern ports, mods, or patches that fix nearly all the problems of the originals. Since people are running Doom on every device possible these days, who knows what other versions we'll see in the future? There are even some versions that run on the lowly Commodore 64 now, and they use the original WADs along with some hardware helpers that were not present on the original platform. But even crazier than that, there's a new release from just a few days ago as I record this that plays a custom version of Doom on the C64 but does not use the original WADs. It's still really interesting to check out. Alrighty folks, your turn. Had you seen these patches and mods and stuff for Doom before on these platforms? What did you think of each version here? Which one is your favorite? Are there any you want to try or have already tried? Tell me all about it in the comments. And that'll do it for this video, my retro gaming friends. If you enjoyed the video, please like and share it online somewhere. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell so you won't miss any of my videos. If you want to support the work that I do here, you can do that on Patreon, Ko-fi, or right here on YouTube through things like Super Thanks and channel memberships. With that, I'll say thanks for watching, and see me later.